to the Art of Living Well podcast. I am your host, Liv Hill, and I am thrilled to have you guys joining with us today. All right, so this podcast, we are all going to talk about how we lose steam on the weekends and how to fix that. I hear this more than anything else is I can be really, and I'm going to put in air quotes, good Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. The weekend gets here and it is just a garbage week. It is a hot mess, trash fire weekend, and then we get that start over on Monday feeling. So we're going to dive deep into that. We're going to talk a lot about what the weekends do to us, and more importantly, how to fix it if that's your goal. If you're like, hey, I want to fix these weekends, we're going to talk about some practical ways to do that because, of course, everything here that we talk about is extremely practical. So, before we get into that, it was really neat. I had a conversation with somebody last week and they were asking me questions about my journey. And they asked me a question that someone has not asked me before. And so I'm chewing on this. I'm thinking on this. More podcasts to come, more content to come around that. But for those of you that have been here for a while, you guys know that I have lost 150 pounds. I lost it 15 years ago, have kept it off. And I really, talk about that a lot, about what went through that whole process. You guys are familiar with that. But the question this person asked me was, what happened? You lost the 150 pounds and then you were trying to keep it off. And at that point, and you guys, of course, that have been here know the story. You were trying to keep it off. You were walking 20,000 steps a day. You were not eating very much. Like, what happened? How did you come out of that? And I, kind of walked through the process and I answered some of those questions, and I'm going to save those for once I get my thoughts more together on it. So I'm not just a rambling case over here on this. And then he said, most people don't do that. And I said, do what? And they said they don't really walk out of a poor relationship with food, which was where you were overweight, and then walk into, some freedom, but then also kind of then go to swing the pendulum so far the other way where you're, then just trying to work off and earn your food and then come back out of that. And I didn't really have an answer. He said, how did you do that? And I answered with how I did that. And I'll, again, save that for later once I get more thoughts around it. But nobody has really ever dove into that. I think we all just get stuck at, like, you lost 150 pounds. How did that happen? And how did you keep it off? And that's great. But there was definitely a huge side of this story of keeping the weight off in an unhealthy way, which was just, like I said, walking 20,000 steps. I've shared that before. Crying in the shower. If you guys have listened to me on the Unashamedly You podcast or the unedited podcast, I shared about the way that was kind of where I hit the wall on the other side of things, where I hit the wall of this can't continue walking 20,000 steps a day and crying in the shower because my body hurt so much, and walking out of that. And so anyway, more to come on that. But that was a really kind of introspective moment, so to speak, that I haven't had, and really put a lot of words around. So, I suppose now looking back on it and reflecting on it and thinking on it more, which I'm going to continue to do, I really broke cycles two ways, right? Broke cycle on poor relationship with food one way, and then broke it on the other way. So anyway, we'll get into that later. But what we're going to talk about is weekends. Let's talk about weekends. And so you lose steam on the weekends. You feel like you're all in Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday even. Friday night, it's like a switch just flips. And I remember, of course, I hear it all the time working with clients. My coaches hear it working with their clients. And it's like, man, if I could just get these weekends under control. For me, my big thing, again, if you followed me for a while, was Thursdays. I could truck really hard for a while Monday through Wednesday. Like, it was like gold star, A+, beautiful, weighing out my food kind of days, looked really great. And then Thursday would hit and it was a dumpster fire all day on Thursday. I could get it back together on Friday. After Thursday, I didn't really let it slide all the way, but then, it was just a hot mess a little bit through the weekend, and then Monday, Wednesday, really, really strong again. And so I fought that for a while until I stepped back and realized, like, what's happening on Thursday. And we're going to talk about some of that. My day was Thursday. Your day may not be Thursday, but we're going to talk some about that because Again, with fat loss, if that's your goal, if body recomposition is your goal, if becoming healthier is your goal, one of the main things you have to do is, one, understand your patterns. And what I like to say all the time to my clients is like, take the blindfold off. Like, you have to face some things. I had to face that Thursday was a dumpster fire for me. That Thursday always went sideways for me. And it happened like that for months and months. And once I faced it and I was willing to put in the work to figure it out, that's how that switched over time. But I'm going to give you some tools to help you fix those things. And so weekends do feel harder. We're going to talk about what actually happens on the weekends. We're going to talk about how to regain control without being completely obsessive. So, a lot of it, the weekends feel so different because you have the psychological shift of going from structure to freedom, right? So Monday through Friday, we're, for the most part, getting up at the same time, following the same process, making our coffee at the same time, having a similar breakfast or a protein shake. We've got that structure that we are following all through the week, Monday through Friday. So that can make that a lot easier. We have things prepped out. This is just the way we do things. But then you get in there on the weekend and you've got some freedom. Maybe you're sleeping later. You don't have food prepped. You don't have a really strong plan in place. Family takes over. They're running here. You're running there. Obligations, church events, all of those things come on. And so you don't have structure like you have through the week. And so just that shift in structure or environment can make a difference, because you now are just what I like to call willy-nilly. So on the weekend, it's just willy-nilly, and I'll take a bite of this, I'll take a bite of that. You may go out to eat more on the weekends. That has more fats and carbs versus protein. Also, the out to eat food have more calories. So then it just kind of piles on. And then before you know it, it's like, man, I've just ruined 5 days of progress with 2 days on the weekend. And it's easy to have that all or nothing thinking, because then like halfway through Saturday, it's like, well, I've already blown today. I've already blown Saturday, even though it's just halfway through. And then that all or nothing mindset starts to come into play. Like, okay, well, I've already blown half of Saturday, so I might as well just finish it out with a bang, with a big hoorah, just do whatever. And then you blow Saturday, then Sunday comes in, you don't have the structure, you're running late for church or whatever it is. And then Sunday goes haywire, and then you start thinking, well, I'll just start over Monday. It will be fine. And that can happen for sure. And then also just psychologically, some metabolic adaptations and some stress can come in. So again, if you have pushed really hard in your deficit, if you're doing extreme dieting, if you're doing extreme deficits or fads where you are just pushing low calorie all through the week, come Saturday, like, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're underfueled. Your body is just looking for some relief. Your body is looking for some comfort. Your body is saying, hey, I've reached max point with as far as I can push, and I just want to refuel. And so you're going to get that signal that says, hey, just put something in here because I need to refuel. And so that is where extreme dieting or really deep dieting or really hard, going hard, I'm going to go hard. When you go hard, that backfires on the weekends, because your body is like pushing back and saying, hey, I don't want to go hard anymore. I want some relief from that. And so that can also be why your weekends start to feel so different. And then last is like social and environmental triggers. So again, you're eating out through the week. You may eat at home more, where you have more control, going back to that more structure. On the weekends, you may eat out. You may have friends that don't have the same goals as you. So, hey, just eat some of this. It's fine. It won't kill you. Go ahead. If you are someone who drinks alcohol, you're going to have more of that on the weekends. Your sleep changes. You may sleep less. I'm going to stay up late on Friday night because that's fun, and then sleep is off. So a lot of your social and environmental triggers will put you in a place to where your weekends feel so different. So how do we get out of that? You're like, okay, cool. I get it. Like, I'm not as structured on the weekends. Maybe I do go into all or nothing thinking. Okay, maybe I am pushing my body too far, or we're going out to eat all the time, or super social on the weekends. Okay, Liv, I'm taking the blindfold off and I'm starting to see where I fall into some of these categories. Now, what I do with that, and that's the thing, is you got to walk into that with, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to admit these things, and I'm willing to work on these things. Because if we're not willing to look at it, if we're not willing to admit it, if we're not willing to admit that some of these things have become habit forming for us, that we are falling into traps and cycles, then you're just going to stay in that trap and cycle. So we want to address it. We want to look at it, and we will say, okay, cool. What's going on? What can I do to fix it? So one is, thinking about what's the real cost of what I'm going to call weekend spirals. What's that really costing you? So in order to want to make the change on the weekends, you have to think about, it's not just like I feel like I want to change. You've got to look at, why do I want to change? What's this costing me? What is the weekend spirals? And I'm just going to use spirals for the point of this podcast. What's it costing me? Am I happy with the outcome? And so when you look at what the costs are, and that's something that I did for myself on those Thursday benders, was what's this costing me? And so you may fall in these same categories, like it's costing us mood swings, because we're just, one, not putting the most quality food in our bodies when we're on a, again, air quote, spiral. We're not eating a ton of protein. We're not eating a ton of good vegetables. We're out here eating cheese sticks and cakes and heavy Starbucks lattes and things like that. So that can affect our overall mood from the food that we're putting in, not to mention just our digestive. So we're just like cranky in the stomach. So then we're like, we ate food that we aren't typically eating. We overate or overindulged on that food. And now my clothes physically feel tighter because I'm eating things with higher sodium. I'm eating things with higher fat, higher carbohydrate. And so now my clothes don't feel good. And we know that that's temporary. So we'll kind of pause right there. We know that you can't gain a pound of fat overnight or over a weekend. You would have to eat 3,500 calories to actually gain a pound, but you can have a lot of digestive issues, not being able to go to the bathroom, those types of things. And so then you start to feel that bloat. And then your clothes are tighter. And so then the mood swings maybe come from the food, but then also the mood swings come from like how you start talking to yourself. You start feeling guilty. You start saying, oh man, like why did I do this again? I can't ever get this together, this negative self-talk. And then energy crashes, right? So again, like if you're drinking alcohol, or you're just, pounding tons of caffeine on the weekends, or just a ton of high palatable, ultra processed foods, your energy starts to crash. Like it's costing you your mental stability to some degree. It's costing you all the work that you've put in for the week. It's costing you digestive issues. So it's costing you a lot. And I would recommend writing these things down because there's a lot of value to writing things down and looking at them. Write down the cost of what's happening on the weekends. What's it costing you? And then it's also costing you these mini resets. So every Monday just starts to mess with your consistency and results. So instead of starting Monday out like, man, I had a pretty solid weekend, wasn't perfect. We're not looking for perfect weekends, but yeah, pretty solid weekend, had some things go well. Let's keep rolling. That's a different vibe from, man, I just absolutely, did horrible on the weekends. I'm a horrible person. I've got to start over. I've got to reset. And that's a cost. That's a cost of mindset. That's a cost of wasted energy. That's a cost of weight of like mental fortitude. And if it's a habit too, and I'm just going to say that it's a habit to always have mini resets like every single Monday. And again, I walk that road. You have to break that habit. But in order to break the habit of the mini resets, you've got to figure out what it's costing you and what do you want to change so that you're not paying that fee every single weekend. There's also a lie that you tell yourself like, man, I just need more discipline. If I could just have more discipline, I don't know what's wrong with me, if I could just get it together. And so that's another lie that you're spinning to yourself, that you need more discipline, when in actuality, you just need better rhythms, better routines, a little bit more structure on the weekends. Now, you do not have to have everything structured out. So we're going to talk about some game changers that go into the weekend. So, okay, weekends feel different. We know why. We're looking at what the cost of these weekend spirals are. We're writing those down. We're taking the blindfold off. Okay, what's this costing me mentally, physically? What's this costing me if I have a fat loss goal that I want to achieve? What's the cost? And now what's my game changers? What can I do to change the game? So what I like to do is anchor 1 to 2 non-negotiables for Saturday and Sunday, and even Friday night. Again, it's going to be dependent on when you feel that start to fade, when you feel like I'm starting to wane. So it might be Thursday for you. But what you want to do is anchor 1 to 2 non-negotiables. So going into the weekend, you will have 1 to 2 non-negotiables that you're going to hit no matter what. Okay, so that could be, I'm going to hit water. I'm going to hit, 120 ounces of water, both on, we're just going to say for the sake of this podcast, Saturday and Sunday. Non-negotiable. I am going to get that no matter what. The other, like something else that you could have could be protein. I'm going to absolutely get my protein in on the weekends, period. End of story, done. Or steps. I'm going to get whatever your step goal is. We've had a podcast on how to set a step goal. Go back and listen to that. Again, for the sake of the podcast, we're going to say your step goal is 8,000 on this one. But I would highly recommend going back to listen to how to set your step goal, because it's not always just a blanket 10,000 steps. That's a very important thing to listen to. Go back a couple of episodes and listen to that one. But where we're going with that is, we're going to say for the sake of this podcast that your step goal is 8,000. So I'm going to get 8,000 steps Friday, Saturday, Sunday, period. End of story. But you want to set those non-negotiables before you go into the weekend. You want to write them down. You want to look at them. You want to commit to them. You want to see them. Tape them up on your mirror. Put them on your refrigerator. Get them in your mind before the weekend starts. Now, what this will do, will this prevent you from overeating? Will this prevent you from YOLOing? Maybe, maybe not. But what it will do is it will set you up for wins. So this way you are banking on some wins in your corner. So maybe you still eat food that you're not real thrilled with that you ate. Maybe you have some things and you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But what I did do is I nailed these 2 non-negotiables that I set up for myself. So then that can start to break that reset every Monday, because you're not resetting. You're looking back over the weekend and you're saying, okay, I nailed my protein. I nailed my steps. I did get those in. These other things, didn't quite get where I wanted to be on those, but I'm going to continue to work towards that. That's going to help set you up mentally for a much better place. And that's how you're going to set your non-negotiable goals, are what's going to make you feel strong mentally, what are some things that you absolutely can achieve, and what's going to make you feel good, right? So if you have some pretty gnarly digestive issues, I would absolutely set a non-negotiable for your fiber. I want to get in 25 to 30 grams of fiber. If you have like some major energy crashes, I would set up a walk goal. I'm going to get out there, I'm going to walk, I'm going to make sure I'm moving my body so that I don't have energy crashes, right? So set your non-negotiables up to exactly what you need that's going to make you feel good. All right, the next thing that I would do to change the game on the weekends is pre-decide your comfort choices. We love comfort. There's nothing wrong with loving comfort. There's nothing wrong with wanting a bowl of macaroni and cheese to make you feel good. Like when people say, like, look at food as fuel. Yeah, but also there's just something about eating a good bowl of macaroni and cheese. I remember the night of my wedding, I was in my wedding dress. You never eat the food at your wedding because you're taking the pictures and all of that stuff. And so at the night of my wedding, my grandmother made me a bowl of homemade macaroni and cheese. And I sat that night, before we left to go on our honeymoon, I sat at her table in my wedding dress, eating a bowl of macaroni and cheese while they took my hair down out of 1,000 bobby pins. And so I'm still remembering that. Was that food comfort to me during that time? Yeah, absolutely. So it's okay for food to be more than fuel. We'll do another podcast on that later. So your comfort, going back to that. So pre-decide your comfort choices. And what I mean by that, if you have a snack, if you have a meal that you really want, if you have rest, if your comfort is like, hey, steps are not my goal. Right now, rest is my goal. I go hard through the week. I don't want to train on the weekends. I want to take some rest and not feel guilty about that. Pre-decide what your comfort choices are, and again, write those down. Write down what comfort choices that you want. Now, again, we're stacking these things, right? So it's not like we're just totally naming out the comfort choices and we're dismissing our non-negotiable anchors that we're setting in. So you want to first, what can you achieve with your anchors? And then also pre-decide what your comfort choices are and have those. Logging your food. If you log your food, if you're a person who logs, which I highly, highly recommend logging your food so that you can understand what you're eating, log that comfort food first. tonight, me and my husband are going out for a date. I am logging our date food in my MyFitnessPal first, because then I know how I'm going to build the rest of the day around that. So then when I go out tonight and I have sushi or I have Mediterranean food, I already know where my limitations are, and I can enjoy that meal absolutely guilt-free because I've built the day around it, because I've logged and decided on my comfort choice ahead of time. The other thing is to use Friday as a check-in. So to recenter yourself on Friday, what are your goals on every Monday? These are my Monday goals. These are my restart goals. This is my mini reset. You're fired up, you're excited. I would write those suckers down on Monday on how you're feeling. I would even write down how I'm feeling. Monday, I'm feeling motivated. Monday, I'm feeling energized. Monday, I'm feeling like I can tackle the world, all of these things. And I would go back and read that on Friday. All right. So then when you do want to check out, even though you don't want to check out, you're like, I really don't want to check out. I want to be checked in. Even though you don't want to be checked out, go back and read that Monday vibe on Friday. Because what you're going to do is you're going to remind yourself of that feeling, and you're going to lock into that feeling. Okay, yes, I want to feel good on Friday, just as good as I felt on this Monday. On this Monday of my mini reset, and I got all these goals in front of me. What do I want to accomplish? Write it down. So much power in writing things down. And so what you're doing with this, when you're game changing your weekend, is one, you're putting your goals in front of you where you can visualize them and see them. You're getting out of your head and you're getting onto paper. So you're going to write down, these are my weekend non-negotiables. I would pick 2. If 2 feels strong, pick 1, but I like 2 because then you've got 2 things to shoot for. Write those down. Crush them. Crush those 1 to 2 non-negotiables on the weekend. Now, you may set them for the first 2 weeks and be like, I need to change these. And they don't have to be the same every week. Play around with it. But set those non-negotiables. Then pre-decide what your comfort choice is. And then on Mondays, write down your high vibes, how you're feeling, energized, motivated, excited, whatever that looks like, and how it makes you feel. And then on Fridays, go back and read what Monday you wrote down and re-lock in and say, okay, this is what it is. Because we don't want those weekends to spiral, but more importantly, we don't want those weekends to have such a mental cost and tax on you that you stay in these weekend spirals, and that you can continue to, yes, maybe it is to lose weight. Maybe it's just to regain a solid or gain a solid relationship with food. Maybe it's to stop this all or nothing mindset. There could be a lot of reasons outside of fat loss that you want to keep your weekends in check. And then wrapping it up to just remind you that your weekends don't have to be perfect. Your weekends do not have to be perfect. And coming from someone who tried to make them perfect, they don't have to be perfect. They do have to be intentional. And so if you are not intentional during your weekend time, you're going to continue to struggle because you're just willy-nilly, you're just winging things and just hoping, crossing my fingers here for those that can't see, and just hoping for the best. And you deserve more than just crossing fingers and hoping for the best. You deserve to be able to nail your weekends, but you got to have the tools to do it. And that's what I'm here to do, is give you those tools to be your very best. So try these things out. If you lose steam on the weekends, this podcast drop on a weekend, even if you're listening to it on a Wednesday, you can implement these things immediately. I didn't get to write down my Monday vibe because it's Wednesday. Cool. Write it down today. How are you feeling? You feeling pretty energized after this podcast? Cool. Write these things down and go ahead and set that up. Play around with it. See how it feels. I guarantee you that if you are willing to take the blindfold off, if you're willing to work at these things, your weekends will improve in such a short amount of time. So, for listening today, thanks so much. Of course, there are tons of other podcasts. There's tons of free content over on social media. Liv Hill Nutrition. That's on Instagram. That's on Facebook. We've got a website, livehillnutrition.net. We also have a summer series where I did a recorded hour-and-a-half long tutorial walking you through all types of things for meal planning, prepping. It's called Say Yes to Summer. That's still available for purchase, along with a full PDF download that gives you tons of ideas. So that's still available. There are one-on-one coaching spots that are available. Guys, we're here to help. We are here to absolutely help you in whatever capacity that you need help. So thank you so much for tuning in, for listening to today's podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. Have a fantastic day.